this school and trying to prepare our students for worldwide universities. We obviously discourage or won't allow any discriminatory language within the school, and yet we can't openly talk about we've got to accept everybody, because that could get us arrested. So again, there's a fine balance and a fine line on how to work on some of these issues. I mean, we generally say that any form of discrimination is not okay, whether it's sexist, whether it's about gender, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about colour. And so we talk in those sorts of terms. And so, yes, it's a very conservative society. And so we will get parents who will come in and say, why are the sixth formers allowed to have nail varnish? Or why are the girls allowed to braid their hair? Because I don't have any rules on hair. And that upsets or worries a lot of parents here, that this is a school and we don't have rules on self-expression like that. And so I have to be aware of those to be able to talk to our Tanzanian parents. I also use my Tanzanians who are in management and who are teachers. So when I've got a parent who's new, especially, and who says, no, this school must be indisciplined because I've seen girls with long braids, for me to get in a Tanzanian teacher and be able to discuss it together is definitely helpful. And so in terms of cultural sensitivity, I try wherever possible to get somebody who's got a culture at least close to the person I'm talking to if we're trying to explain something. Many of the parents still beat their children here. And so again, if they're in trouble, I will always try and get an East African to be able to come in and say, no, we would prefer that you deal with this in a different way, that you support us in the school in this way, otherwise we're confusing the child, because obviously that's not the way we would deal with things in school. And so there's all those cultural sensitivities. We do workshops for our parents where we look at raising teenagers, for example, and how you would discipline or support us in the home, how you would get through some of the issues that we go through, to try and get our parents to talk and to try and bring in other views, because otherwise our two approaches are so different for many of our parents. And it's important we recognise that and we build on their knowledge, because, how they went to school and what, the way that they were brought up is very different from the experiences their children are having.
Okay, thank you for that. And you mentioned that you use, in some cases, as a resource, a local teacher, a local staff member to help you connect, if you will, with the parent community. Can you explain to me the methods you use when it's necessary to do that for the staff, the faculty? They also have to communicate and interact with the community. Do you also use the same type of method? If not, can you go into more detail about the strategies you use?
No, so when we're working with the staff, again, I'll give you an example of some child protection training we did the other day. So when looking at child protection training, we began by looking at what do we think is physical abuse. And we looked at a few different video links. And again, our East African staff had very different views than our Western staff. And we were able to really sit and discuss and get people to talk about and recognise. We looked at emotional abuse, we looked at all of those different things, and we recognised that actually a lot of those terms that for me are, I've grown up, not even questioning, suddenly realised that actually even our understanding of those are quite cultural. Do you know what I mean? Of course, it is abuse, but my understanding of what's neglect might be very different from somebody else's, or my understanding of emotional abuse, or a whole range. I mean, in my staff, I've got teachers who, 5 of them would sleep in one bed when they were growing up. So, the brothers and the sisters and everybody. Now, in England, that social services would be arriving at your door if you had your brothers and your sisters all in one bed. And so there's an awful lot of things that have to be discussed, unpicked, as far as possible, not judge, so people feel safe to open up and talk and say that we and this school take